Record. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Donna Odra. I'm the Associate Director for Fordham IPED. I'm also an alumna of Ateneo Batch 2000 of BSME program. With me this afternoon is our director, Dr. Henry Schwalbenberg, who's also the professor and advisor for students in the program. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our co-hosts from Ateneo, Dr. Noel de Guzman of the Ateneo Economics Department, Ms. Karla Rojas, Ms. Pyle Natividad, Ms. Cristina Alikpala, and Mr. Vanessa Reventar, who had arranged this event for us in Ateneo from the Office of the Assistant Vice President for University Partnerships and Internationalizations. At the same time, we want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Louis Demlao, former JG Som Dean and professor at the Economics of Department of Ateneo, who's currently joining us over Zoom. And lastly, we want to acknowledge the presence of our alumni from Fordham IPED and also Ateneo who are joining our group in person at Faber, Mr. John Alikpala of IPED class 1999, Mr. Patrick Fernandez of IPED class 2020, Mr. Shane Liesegang, SJ, of IPED 2020, and also Ms. Rensi Pua of IPED class of 2020. Um, Maybe Dr. S, you'd like to start? Or maybe we should call on our alumni, I guess, like to introduce themselves, like give a brief background, and then we'll proceed with our presentation. Does that make sense? Um, yeah, I guess we'll start with Rensi. Just a brief background of what your undergrad major was at Ateneo, and what you did immediately after graduating from IPED. And then we'll ask our alumni to speak again later on during our Q&A.
Hi, I'm Rensi. I graduated BS Management Engineering back in 2007. So I attended the Masters in IPED program 2018 to 2020. Right after, I became the executive director of Cartwheel Foundation Inc. It's a nonprofit that provides access to education to indigenous peoples here in the Philippines.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Patrick. I graduated here also from the Ateneo with a degree in computer engineering in 2013. And then I took my master's at Fordham IPED, graduated 2020. After IPED, I worked for UNDP, United Nations Development Program, for 4 years as an analyst for a team that works for nature for development, so biodiversity and nature for economic development.
Thanks. My name is John Alikpala. I'm I also graduated from Ateneo College in '92, a long time ago. Did my finished iPad in '99. Had a career in international development, then came back, work in government. Currently working as an economist in the United Nations here in the Philippines.
I'm Shane Liesegang. I did not go to Ateneo for undergrad. I did not set foot on Ateneo's campus until July this year. I'm thrilled to be here, but it's all very new to me. My undergraduate was in completely unrelated things like theater and computer science and psychology. After 10 years of working with those fields, I became a Jesuit. And when I found my way to Fordham to study philosophy, I said I also want to study political science and economics because I was interested in working with the Jesuit Refugee Service long term, perhaps doing some kind of policy work for that org. And so right after IPED, I was in the Middle East for 2 years as the regional technology officer there for the Jesuit Refugee Service. Now I am in my last stage of formation before I'm ordained to the priesthood. So I'm studying theology, and I'm here for 1 year doing theology, but with migration as well. So I'm still kind of keeping up some of my IPED thought. Follow me.
Thank you, Rensi, Patrick, John, and Shane. Dr. Schomburg, maybe we could start our presentation.
Sure, very good. I guess we gotta turn on the slides, or,
Yeah, I can do that now.
and then I guess we should double check that the sound is okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have the slide. We can skip this one. There we go. So they tell me there's 3 reasons you might want to do a master's program. One is, can you afford it? And so at the end, we'll talk about the scholarships we have. And in the past, Ateneo graduates have been very successful in competing for scholarships that cover their costs of attendance. The other thing people might consider is the location. And so we're in New York City, a big city, not as big as Manila, but big for American standards. And then the final thing, and maybe the most important, is does it offer what you want to study? So we highlighted 3 things here. Is that we're going to look at global economic relations, but we're going to do it from a interdisciplinary point of view, combining both political science and economics. We're also going to build up a strong quantitative methods foundation. And then we're going to have a lot of practical training, or opportunities for practical training, including some funding opportunities so our students can do field placements in between their first and second year of studies. And I think that photo there was the group in South Africa. We have a South Africa program every summer. So that's that crowd there. So it's a 12-course program. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. It's 1.5 semesters. So we start in September, we go to May, then you can do your summer placements, and then we have 1 more semester, and we end in the second year halfway through in December. You're going to have a solid foundation in political analysis, economic analysis, and econometrics, and then you're going to be able to specialize. And I think the next slide are the specializations. If your interest is the private sector, then we're probably going to encourage you to specialize in international banking and finance. If your interest is more development overseas in different countries, then we're probably going to encourage you to focus on international development studies. If you're somewhere in between finance and development, then you might want to design something where you combine those 2 sets of courses and create a specialization in finance and development. If you're going into government work, then we're probably going to encourage you to do international and development economics. But there are also a lot of new developments dealing with the environment and climate change. And so people going both into government work or some in the private sector also, impact investment, and certainly in the nonprofit sector, you might want to focus on global environmental and resource economics. And then I think the next slide tells us where the placements are. So, and I believe this is just the Filipino graduates of our program.
Yes,
So,
that's correct.
So 38% go into the private sector, usually as financial analysts or management consultants. 19% follow John Alikpala and go into the public sector. And then a large number, I guess second place, is the nonprofit sector. And that can be either in the Philippines, you see Cartwheel Foundation there, but of course, also could be in any country in the world, say through Catholic Relief Services or one of the other international relief agencies. And then we have a bunch, more than I would say the normal for that continue on in academic or education. And so that's our placement record in general. And I think these are the physical locations of where our Filipino alumni are. A little different from the average for the whole program. You'll see the two big places are the United States, 48% decide to stay in the US, and that's probably dealing with private sector or perhaps the UN itself. And then you can see 39% are return home to the Philippines. So we have and then we have a small scattering of people in different countries. That could be due to assignments in international relief agencies where they get moved around, and so they could be almost anywhere. Uh, uh, and then I got to find out who the 2% are in Australia. I have to track that down. But anyway, next slide, I guess. This is just give you some of the activities. Our program tries to have some practical field placements. And if I just go around that clockwise, you can see the stock exchange is there, then the Brooklyn Bridge, then the stock exchange again, and then we come back to the Council on Foreign Relations, and then the United Nations General Assembly. So those are some of the areas of New York. Remember, location is another factor you might want to consider in a graduate program. And so New York is known for the UN, Wall Street, and and international affairs in general is represented by the Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, now the important part, you got to pay for these things. Fordham is very expensive. And New York City is not cheap either. But we tend to get very talented students from the Ateneo, so that's why we are very happy to be here to host this thing, in the hope that a few of you will decide to apply and come and join our program. So we do have scholarships that cover your full tuition, which is a big amount of money. And then we also have some scholarships that give you a stipend, and the stipend is the 36,000 US dollars per year. So your first year you'll get the 36,000, and in your second year you'll get half of that because it's a year and a half program. And it looks like we also help cover your health insurance to some extent. Let's see. Oh, this is the Arupe Fellowship. This is one particular. So this is for those people who want to go into international relief and development work. And we try to work in cooperation with Catholic Relief Services to place you there. And I'm not quite sure where that photo is, but I think it might be, it's either Rwanda or it's West Africa. Um, since you come from the Philippines, you have experience in a developing country. You have foreign language proficiency because most of you know Tagalog or Visaya or something. And if you're interested in development, especially those who did the JVP, this is an ideal fellowship for people coming out of the Jesuit Volunteers Philippines program. Next scholarship. Oh, this is more for those who are more interested in the private sector, hence the picture of Manhattan there. And again, it's the same full tuition scholarship, the same stipend. And this is for those who want to do banking and finance or economics. And we're happy to encourage you to apply for this. Next one is, all right, this one we try to use these, there's several of these, and we try to use this for our international students. Unlike the other two, which are focused on a particular career path, private sector or the nonprofit sector, this one it's just based on your academic credentials and your professional experience. And you can be interested in any career path. But it's the same full tuition scholarship, the same stipend, and the same assistance with health insurance. Oh, and then we have this one you're probably not going to be interested in because it only covers your tuition and doesn't give you a stipend for your living expenses. But if later on in your life you happen to have a job and you happen to be, say, at the UN in New York, then you might want to consider this. You would come as a part-time student, we would cover your tuition, and you'll be working, so that would cover your expenses of living. So that's another opportunity, but probably not for students coming out of Ateneo right now. This maybe a little later in your career if you don't take advantage of our program right away. Oh, and then an important part, I think, of any program is how they assist you while you are in the program. So we'll have our curriculum, our focus on international political economy and development issues, but we'll also have funding, several funding sources, one endowment to help place students in that summer. So there's a bunch of pitches here, and there are different people doing different things. Some are working with the U.S. government in Washington or overseas. Some are with Ernst & Young, the private sector. Others are with the UN or the Clinton Foundation, I see. And some are doing their language studies in either one pitch is down by Bolivia, and some do their language studies in French in France. And so we have scholarships to help cover these overseas placements during that during the summer gap between your first and second year of studies. We also, if you get homesick, there's an opportunity to come back in. Our program starts in September, but in the January we have a project assessment program in the Philippines. And so if you happen to be around the Ateneo in January, that would be a good time to come and talk to us. We'll be happy to talk to you. We'll be there for 2 weeks with about maybe 12 students, and they will be doing some classwork at Ateneo, and then they'll be doing some field work in somewhere surrounding outside of Manila. This is our other overseas program, and this one is in South Africa. The first one that I talked about in the Philippines focused on project assessment, I guess more relevant for people going into development work. This one focuses on emerging markets, so maybe more relevant for those who want to combine finance and development. Here we'll spend time meeting with people from the central bank and the stock exchange. And in this case, you get to go on a safari at the end of the program, which people enjoy very much. And this is something you can do at the end of our program if you wish. And it looks like Donna has chosen pictures where there are Filipinos in every picture.
Almost.
Yeah, look at that. I'm just looking around. In the Lesotho, I don't think you got anyone in Lesotho from the Philippines. No, okay, almost every picture.
Yes.
So we have Takas in Rwanda there, and Lesotho, and where is
Armand was in Burkina Faso.
which is now not a safe place to go, so we don't have people going there anymore, but at that time it was a wonderful place to go. So we do have a program with Catholic Relief Services for those who want to pursue a career in international relief and development. It's a 6-month placement, and we kind of use it as a backdoor way to get entry into a full-time job with Catholic Relief Services, and then with other organizations later on in people's careers. And then it looks like we got a picture of Rensi there on the bottom. And is that Patrick next to Cardinal Parolin?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. So we do have a program with the Holy See, the Vatican, where you can help. Well, you can ask Patrick and Rensi all about it, what they do. But they basically represent Pope Francis at the UN. They become the eyes and ears. And it's a whole semester program. Full time though, so it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's fun to see everyone's pictures. Okay, what's
And
next?
we just want to also emphasize that for the placements for the summer and for the 6-month extended training with CRS or the Holy See mission to the UN, even for the trips to the Philippines and South Africa, we do provide either part or full funding for students who pursue these opportunities.
Yeah, these 2 6-month things are long-term, they're full funding, and the other ones, it depends. Oh, emission requirements. Oh, you can't just walk in, huh? So you gotta complete the application. That's not too difficult. Submit your resume. That's not, and then send in your transcripts. Not much you can do about what the transcripts say, so just send them in. The statement of intention. It says there, explicitly state what fellowship you wish to be considered for. That helps us. It also helps you in the sense you got to explore our website and get an understanding of what we're about. And what we're really looking for you in your statement of intent is what have you been doing that made you want to come to Fordham? And then the second part, how can your studies at Fordham prepare you for what you want to do with your professional career later on? And then we need 3 letters of recommendation, pretty much like every other program. One academic, ideally one professional. It kind of depends on your background. If you've never been out of college, it's kind of hard to get a professional recommendation, but it'd be nice to have someone who saw you in a professional setting tell us about you, and someone who saw you in a classroom who can tell us that you're great in a classroom as well. And then there should be, that's the one. This is the one that's unlike so many other programs during COVID, we did not drop our GRE requirement. So there are many other programs that you can get into that will not require a GRE score. You can avoid all the pain and agony of taking the GREs just by going to another school. But unfortunately, those schools want your money, and you probably will have to pay a lot of money to go there. To take the GREs, do well, and then maybe we can come up with the money to fund some people. We have some scores there. They vary from year to year depending on the application pool. But we really would like people to be, all our students, we would like to be in the top 50%. And our scholarship folks, we really would love it if they're in the top 15%. But now with less people taking the GREs, the percentage is going to be changed. So you'll probably, we probably shouldn't go by those percentages anymore. Probably you can, since a whole lot of people aren't taking them, probably a lower percentage is the same as a higher percentage would have been before COVID. But anyway, let's keep on going. Oh, this is a good thing to consider. It's a little difficult to give advice to people coming out of the Ateneo because they tend to be so good. So for most international students, it's in their interest to take one of these tests, the TOEFL or all these English tests, and get these scores. And you probably can do this very easily. These tend not to be difficult for people coming from the Ateneo because your English language skills are so strong. But when we see this, then we are able to ignore the verbal section and the writing section on the GRE. And on the GRE, we just focus on the quantitative section. So what happens is some of the writing and the verbal parts of the GRE we feel are a little culturally biased. So if you weren't brought up in the American English, you might not get the full whatever what they're really asking for. And so by doing this, that allows us to say, oh, their English is terrific. Let's just look at the quantitative score. So for many international students, it's in their interest to take the TOEFL or one of the other language tests so we can just focus on their quantitative score in the admission process. And January 10th is the deadline if you want funding. And we've only had one student from the Ateneo in the past who actually got funding and said they didn't need it. So she could have applied on April 1st, but almost everyone needs funding to come to New York and to come to Fordham. And so January 10th is the deadline, which means you need to take the GRE exam. And if you want the TOEFL, as soon as possible. That concludes our little summary of whatever.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about the program, about life in New York, about the funding opportunities or the admission process, let us know. That's what we're here for.
We have one question from the Zoom. Let me call on Genesis.
Hi everyone, so I'm Jemmy from the Department of Economics. So my question is, in the case of our graduating students, the current fourth year, can they already apply or would they have to secure those needed 1 to 2 years of relevant experience before they consider applying? Thank you, that's the question.
It depends on what career path they're looking for. So if their career path is international relief and development, then we normally work with Catholic Relief Services, and they want some professional experience prior to get a job in that field. And that professional experience can include the Jesuit volunteers in the Philippines, so that's equivalent. If, however, your interest is in business and finance, then people or government, then people who get jobs right out of right out of school, and they're not as demanding about prior experience. So it depends on the career path. So I would say in international relief and development work, you need experience and language skills. In the other fields, it's more just academic training.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Do we have other questions from the room or from people who are joining us over Zoom? I think we have a question in the room. If you could speak using the mic.
Hello, good afternoon. So I have a question for the Presidential Scholarship and Graduate Assistantships Fellowship. So what do you consider exceptional academic performance? I'm just curious because it's not listed right here. I'm actually interested in the ARUPE or the Presidential Scholarship, and I'm just curious, what do you consider as an exceptional academic performance? Thank you.
Well, it's hard to answer that question, especially when you have an audience from the Ateneo de Manila. You guys do not have grade inflation the last time I checked. So we read your transcripts very differently than we read the transcript of another school. So if you come from another school, you probably will have to have a higher GPA than if you came from the Ateneo. But again, everything's relative to who's in the application pool. But there will be things like that where we will say, oh, this is someone from the Ateneo. The GPA may be lower compared to someone from a different school, but we know in that school they have grade inflation, and we know in the Ateneo they do not have grade inflation. And so we will take that into account. So we kind of start off that most people in the Ateneo should be exceptional unless they prove themselves that they're not. How does that help a little bit in a sense? That's why we're going through all this effort to have this what do you call it, information session at the Ateneo, because we have been over the last I think I've been doing this for 36 years. So I think over the last 36 years, we have gotten exceptional students from the Ateneo. I'm told not everyone is exceptional, but so far it's looking pretty good.
You may also ask questions to our alumni who are present in the session. So if anyone has questions for our alumni, feel free to ask them as well.
Well, while people are thinking, let me just say that if you're shy or hesitant, feel free to contact us by email. I think we had it somewhere, but it's just IPED, IPED at Fordham.edu. And we would be happy to arrange for a Zoom meeting. And then if you when we're there in January, we're also happy to meet you. We'll be staying at the ISO. If they don't have questions, I have questions for them.
We have one question in the room.
Oh,
Another
okay.
question. I hope you guys don't mind. So, is it okay if we get a copy? So I'm considering po kasi the different tracks, specializations under this course. So I think one thing that would help me is I could see the subjects under the curriculum, like what we will be studying per semester. Is it okay if we get a copy of that per specialization?
Yeah, sure. So if you could send us an email so I can send you specifically all our courses that we offer, as well as some description of our courses, then you can send me that information.
Thank you so
I
much.
can give you a little, what specializations are you interested in?
I'm considering specialization. No, I'm considering nonprofits or okay, this one, international development studies or something related to development.
Oh,
But
okay,
I'm also interested, actually after hearing that it's also related to finance. I'm thinking about probably taking something like in between finance and development. But I really want to check the courses first, the subjects first, so that I could really gauge what I think is the best choice for me.
sure. So
Can
let
I
me just
jump in
give,
on this real quick?
Yeah.
sure.
Uh, it's also possible to sort of craft your own specialization. I don't know, Donna or Dr. S, tell me if that's no longer the case.
Well,
Um,
that's the case.
Okay, because in my case, I didn't fit neatly into any of the specializations, and I sort of crafted my own way through. There are a handful of required courses that you have to do for the program, and then there's a large range of other ways of filling out the rest of it. So that's something that you can sort of discern in conversation with the admin folks.
I see. So that means like I could probably pick what subjects I want for my specialization outside of the ones they crafted for us.
I mean, yeah, you can't take like painting or something, but like, yeah, if it's related to international political economy, you can probably sell it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I'll just give you a brief overview of, so the specialization in international business and finance, besides the normal courses you take in economics, would also include courses in banking and a few courses in finance. And then some people will go down to the business school and take a couple more courses down there. If you're doing development studies, then you're going to be focusing more on project management, project assessment. Plus, I guess the latest thing is this use of randomized controlled trials. And then we also are very concerned that you know something about agricultural economics. If you're doing more straight economics and you want to do more in international, then you have international finance and international trade. If you want to focus more on development economics, then you would do the we have several courses that deal with development that are economics courses. They could be things from Africa to gender and development to health and development and epidemics and development is a popular course. So there's a bit of a range in development. But the finance is more straightforward, what you would take.
We have a couple of questions over chat, so we'll go through them quickly. Then we go back to the students in the room. So what is the oldest age of an IPED student? We don't have like a maximum age or in terms of cap, but like we do have folks who are like the average age group in our program would be in their mid-20s, between 23 to 27. But we do have students in their late 20s and mid-30s. Currently in our program, I think our oldest student would be in his early 40s. And so, you know, it caters, that the program caters to all students of all ages, depending on where you are in your career journey. If you feel like this is the right time for you to pursue grad studies, then we encourage you to do so. There's also another question over Zoom. Could you go back to the tips you shared earlier on writing the letter of intent?
Sure, I can repeat that. It's you want to, well, there's for our particular application, tell us what scholarship you want to be considered for. It can be more than one, just to help us and guide us. But the main content should be what have I been doing that makes me want to study this in this program? So what has been going on in your life academically that you developed this interest? And then how will you use these studies to pursue your future career? So we want to, so for the most part, even though some people go on for PhDs after our program, for the most part, our students are using this as a way to prepare for a career. So we want you to start thinking about how you can use this to prepare for whatever career you want, either in the public sector, the private sector, or the nonprofit sector.
And then I think there's someone who wants to ask a question from the room.
Just have two questions. In case na let's say that your job, your company, or your government agency decides to like fund my education in Fordham, is it still possible to apply for a fellowship?
That I think that's the one you would apply for the Ricci, so you could get a matching tuition. So so yeah, I think that's how we would solve that problem.
Yeah. Do you have an additional question?
One last question. Aside from like the Mateo Ricci scholarship, are the other fellowships friendly to working students, or is that the only option for working students?
I didn't hear the question, Donna.
Yeah. Can you repeat that and project loudly in the mic?
Sorry. Aside from the Mateo Ricci fellowship, are the other fellowships friendly to working students, or is that the only option?
To working students, well, it depends. I guess like for an international student audience, the rules will be a little bit different. It depends on what kind of visa you come into the US. So most international students come in on an F1 visa. And so what that means is that as an international student on your first year in the US, you're not going to be able to work outside campus. And that's a US Department of State policy. But let's say by the summer, like if once you complete one full academic year, you can start working outside campus. And you can be on a CPT, like that's your work authorization. Your work has to be related to your program of study. And so on a CPT, you can be a part-time or full-time student, or rather part-time or full-time worker at that point. So for students in our program, usually if you're on a fellowship and you're receiving funding, you're already working on campus with us on a part-time basis. But if you get an internship outside, especially on your second year, we do allow that. It's just that we need to arrange with the student the schedule because you still have like work responsibilities with us as a graduate assistant. Um, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Um,
You might want to do what's that, 1 year eligibility for employment in the United States upon graduation. So those who want to, who look for a job in the US, of course, if it's with the UN, then US rules don't matter. But if it's in the private sector, you want to look for a company that is big enough that they really don't care about the paperwork they have to do with an international student, and a company that has a tradition of recruiting internationally. Um, uh, then you can, so I think she mentioned CPT, correct, curriculum practical training. So those are paid internships that you can do while you're still in the program. Then there's optional practical training. So that's and then is that the 1 year thing?
yeah, that's the one after graduation. So we
Yeah.
do have related questions from the Zoom chat. Is what kind of visa will Filipino students need for the program? You would be attending Fordham on an F1 student visa if you join us. And then how long are students allowed to work in the US after graduation? So for students who come to the US on an F1 visa, you have 1 year um, to work in the US. And then after that, that's your OPT period. And then after that 1 year OPT period after you graduate, to continue to work in the US, you need to be on either work visa or if you somehow found a way to be sponsored for a green card or for residency, then you can have work authorization in the US. There's also a question on funding availability for US residents. Yes, all our scholarships are also available to US residents. We have ones that are actually that we did mention in this presentation that are available for US students just because the requirements for those scholarships require that you have work authorization already on your first year. Um, um, There's a question, what if we don't have transcript by January since we're graduating on June 2025? You can already request a transcript from Ateneo. What they will do is that they will just include in your transcript the courses that you've taken so far and with your grades, and then they will show you they will show in the transcript what courses you're currently taking when you requested for the transcript. So so even if incomplete pa siya dahil you're still completing your last semester at Ateneo, we would require those transcripts. And then once you get admitted to the program, and then once you've completed your degree in Ateneo, our admissions office will request for an updated version of your transcript as well. Yeah, and then do we have an additional question in the room? Yes.
Hello. I'm just curious, how is the workload for part-time students, especially they have jobs, and what are the specific jobs that they usually take together with the program?
So full-time students in our program take 4 courses per semester. So it seems easy because alam ko in Ateneo, as full-time students, we take at least 5 courses per semester. But for grad studies, it's 4 courses. If and then That's how you're able to complete the program in 3 semesters. If you're a part-time student, typically you just take 2 courses per semester, the fall, spring, and then you also take 2 courses over the summer, and then 2 more um, for each of the 2 semesters on your second year, and then or you plus 1 more summer, I think. And so you complete the program in 2 years. Kasi two usually what they do. Um, for students who are part-time, in our program, there's not a lot of them, but we do have a few. Most of them work with the UN. So it's either they're working full-time in the UN or to their country mission to the UN based in New York. We've had also students in the program who are working, let's say, with like a financial institution in New York. And so they're taking the program part-time. So usually they're already working in New York, and then they apply with us, and then they decide to pursue part-time. Yeah.
I would want to add an important thing there is that many IPED classes, especially the required ones, are in the evenings. So I was officially a part-time student. Instead of a job, I was being a Jesuit. But it's fairly easy time-wise because the classes are in the evening. So we'd have people coming basically straight from work, and it's a long day, but it's not like you have to miss an afternoon of work or something and try to take a class. Like most of the stuff is scheduled, especially the required courses, assuming that that people have things going on during the day.
Yeah, that's a good point, Shane. Thanks. Because yeah, all our classes are in the evenings except for 1 or 2. And you can avoid those 1 or 2 courses that are offered in the like midday. And that's also to accommodate part-time students, but also even our full-time students, they're all engaged in an internship or assistantship one way or another. And so it allows them to do other things during the day and then come in the evening for classes.
Just
Um,
to add, I was on the presidential scholarship. So it has a graduate assistantship component. So I had to work at the IPED office. And like Donna and Dr. S are super considerate. So the workload is very manageable. Like some were even able to do the internship with the iPad office and at the same time do an internship outside. So like some people are able to juggle all of that. Um it can be tiring, but I think it'll pay off in the end because if you get like internships outside, then you'll get more chances of scoring a job once you graduate. But in terms of workload, like it's very manageable. Of course, there will be weeks where, like there'll be finals and then there are papers due and everything. But like I think the experience was easier compared to my Ateneo like management engineering experience. Like college here is harder. There.
Thank you po. Thank you.
yeah, go ahead.
So another question. I hope you're not tired of my face. I have a question on student housing. So just for context lang, I just finished din po kasi my Jesuit volunteer year. I finished last July. And the reason why I'm asking this, kasi living in another area for for a amount of time, I noticed na hindi po siya, or like I haven't read if there's an inclusion of student housing sa scholarship. So my question is, for the stipend, is that inclusive of the student housing, or do we have to look for places where we live? And for the stipend, may ano po ba, is food allowance included or other expenses, like for example, for our laptops or for paying for our books, stuff like that?
Yeah. I'll answer it briefly and then I'll pass it on to our alumni there. So the stipend, actually like the stipend decreased beginning this year. But even like with our stipend levels before, which was a bit 10,000 lower, it should be enough to cover your living expenses and rent. So just to give an idea, like let's say you go to New York, usually our students live in the Bronx, close to campus. Like you spend about between 650 to $1,000 for rent, and then you can allocate about $500 to $1,000 for food. And that's like yung maximum na rate sa binibigay ko. That's kind of also splurging as a student. And so for at least in my experience when I was a student at Fordham, like you can definitely save some money given your stipend, and also um, enjoy living in the city. And then like we give you the stipends for you to, decide how you might want to spend it. And then most people like find their own living arrangement. So we don't arrange housing for you, but we provide the funding for you to get housing. Usually students live in the Bronx, near campus. Like there's graduate student housing that Fordham operates and manages, but then it's also in the same neighborhood as where most of our students would live. And so um, we like we encourage you to find living arrangements with students. We coordinate, like we connect you with other students as well. Kasi mas makakatipid ka if you're paying, like if you're directly renting from another space instead of um going through Fordham's housing. Yun lang yung parang side tip for that. And then maybe Renzi, John, and Shane, and I think Patrick left already, but maybe the three of you can share your experience briefly of living in the Bronx, and what life is like there.
The stipend is actually more than enough for everything. Like you can even watch a Broadway play sometimes, or like I don't know, what do you do? Like I was even able to like sign up for improv classes, because I was interested in that, like theater classes. So like as long as you kind of track your budget, like it's more than enough. I was also a Jesuit volunteer, batch 36. It's the stipend at Fordham is nothing like the JVP stipend. The JVP stipend, I got like 3,000 pesos per month. You got 4,000 pesos. That's even more than what I got. But there, it's more than enough. Like I was able to pay for rent, for food, for entertainment sometimes. Like we would even go to karaoke sometimes or drink sometimes. But like it's more than enough to live a decent life in New York. Just don't live in Manhattan
Okay.
or in Brooklyn. Like stay in the Bronx. And the Bronx is a very safe area. Um, of course there are areas that are a bit shady, but the area near Fordham is very safe. And they're just as Donna said, just don't get housing within Fordham. There are many affordable apartments outside of Fordham. Uh, there, like yeah, I didn't like go hungry, or I wasn't in like poor living conditions in New York. Like it was a good experience.
No, I was scared lang kasi nga, we're calling JVP, like, that's how we lived.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. Like
Yeah.
my JVP housing, like there were rats and cockroaches
Yeah.
like in my room all the time. But here, like I didn't see a single cockroach. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you want to add?
So I did mine a long time ago, so I'm sure the cost of living is higher now. But similar experience that the stipend is more than enough. Siyempre, simple lifestyle. As a student, I think you'll be spending most of your time studying, right? That's why you're there. So it will be enough. Like in my case, what helped was that I found a roommate. So I didn't have to rent my own apartment. So I think that if for those who are thinking, as Donna said, they can put you in touch with students who are there, who will be looking for roommates. So that will keep costs down as well. So in my case, I even saved enough to go home after a year. So buy my own airplane ticket, which was like back then $600, $700. So it's enough. You can live on it.
And maybe, yeah, do we have an additional question?
I'll add lang, but you won't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
the stipend until like maybe a month or two after you arrive in New York. So make sure you have enough money to live for like a month or two without the stipend yet.
Ay, Rensi, they updated that na.
Ay, updated na. Okay.
So
Oh,
they
oh,
can
I got
start
to
receiving
forget.
it when they get to New York. So like the stipend we mentioned, the $36,000, that's good for 10 months. That's while classes are in session. So that's about 3,600, $3,600 per month. And then you get taxed for it because it's treated as income because you work on campus. So but I think your take home will be close to $3,000 anyway, like high 2000. So that's gonna be I think more than enough. Like you can definitely do a lot of things with that money. Um, yeah.
Like the plane ticket is not covered, right? So they have
Yeah,
to
yeah. The plane ticket is
make sure
not.
they have enough money to get to New York in
Yes.
the first place. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, all that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I forgot about that and I had to like borrow money from my parents.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'd just like to ask, are we required to complete the program in the 3 or 4 consecutive terms, or is it possible or allowed to take a break or gap between these required terms?
If you're coming on a scholarship, like in one of our fellowships, you have to complete it in 3 semesters. Maybe you can stretch it to 4 semesters, like instead of graduating at the end of the third semester, you do another semester in the spring, and we can stretch, scholarship credits to that last semester. But your stipend ends after the third semester. So that's one thing that you need to take into account. Like the fellowships are structured for you to complete on time. That's why they require, like that's why they give you money to be a full-time student. Um, but if, for example, you're not worried about the scholarship because you have other, means to finance your studies, like an MA program at Fordham, you have 5 years to complete it. So you can take as long as 5 years if you're not on and like you're not thinking of funding at all. And then and the 5 years, I don't think it counts the semesters you're on a leave of absence. But we encourage people to complete as soon as possible because you don't want to stretch it too. Um, I think people's energy to go back to school dwindles as time passes by as you get older. So you'd wanna finish it as soon as you can.
Thank you. Can I add another question? Do we also have to file our own taxes?
Yes. um, if you're coming on a scholarship or like if you took up any job, whether it's a graduate assistantship that comes with the scholarship or like you took another job elsewhere, the US IRS requires you to file taxes. Um, and usually hindi naman siya malaki, like the taxes would be proportional to what you're earning. But you have to file taxes every April. And you'll have like other international students who commiserate with or help you go through the forms.
The process of filing taxes there is super easy. Like I don't remember having trouble with the form. So there's like a software where you can just fill out everything, and then like, well, I remember they were even like, we even got refunds, like tax refunds. So yeah, it's super easy, and yeah, um, don't worry about that. Like, it's not like here in the Philippines.
Thank you so much.
Um, maybe we can, if you don't have additional questions, maybe we can have like last words from Dr. S and then also from our three alumni in the room.
Well, we very much look forward to your applications and we hope to get some. And we very much, the tradition has been terrific. The students we have gotten over the years, outstanding. And if you want to study international political economy and look at issues of the global economy, environment, finance, development, and have a strong background in quantitative as well as practical experience. We're a good program for that. If you like to explore New York City, we're good for that. And we probably have some of the most generous scholarship out there for an MA level. And so and then over the years, the people we've gotten from Ateneo have been very talented and have done wonderful things with their careers. And so we're very excited about recruiting students from the Ateneo.
And then can we hear back from Shane, John, and Rensi?
The Well, first of all, I think the funding is no joke. Like, um, it's rare to find a master's program nowadays that offers full funding. Like, to be honest, like when I went to Fordham, my husband also went to NYU, and we're still currently paying off his student loans. And I'm not paying. So yeah, so so it's rare to find a master's program that provides full funding. And it's also rare to find a master's program that not only provides full funding, but it's also high quality. Like, I think this was a game changer for my career. Like, I started because I started when I graduated, I had the corporate career, and then I wanted to do career change. So I started out with the Jesuit Volunteers Philippines. Um, so with that, like, I was able to get practical tools, but with the Fordham education that I got, I was able to back that up with theory, with quantitative training, so that, like, in the end, I became a well-rounded development professional. So if that's something that you want in the future, to be a development practitioner with a with a well-rounded background, then I think this is a really good place to go to.
For me, I think um, I will just reiterate and support the comments about the quality of education that you'll get. Clearly, very well qualified professors, well experienced. So the depth of knowledge you'll gain, academic knowledge you'll gain, is there. I think the experience of being in class with other international students, people working in New York, but also several other international students, for me, helped, I suppose, broaden my worldview. Just, you know, having class with them. Um, I suppose compared to other master's program, what I would highlight are the various opportunities for the fellowships within the program. So the summer language immersion, etc. I did the 6 month CRS fellowship at the end. So I I'm I think that's one strong advantage of the IPED program. These additional opportunities that are added to the 1.5 years, which you probably won't find in many other master's programs. And finally, just New York. Like, and I'm just personally biased. New York. Like there's a lot of things to experience. So beyond academic life, watching, catching a Broadway show, and just, experiencing the city for all its diversity. So there. So parang there's life beyond academics. Thank you.
Thank you. Just echoing a little bit of what they said, when I was applying to IPED, I was already living at Fordham, and I knew other Jesuits that had done IPED, so it was sort of a natural kind of thing. But I also applied to political science programs at NYU and Columbia, and I was accepted. And these are places I came in a little more interested in political science, as Dr. S can remember. Economics was not my strong point at IPED. But I came to love economics by the end of it. But I was looking at these programs, and the faculty in political science at these two places is amazing. But then I quickly found out that the master's program, you don't get that faculty. That's for the PhD students. The master's students get whatever. And my superior, my Jesuit superior at the time, had been a dean, a university dean, and we were looking at the programs, and he said, these are cash cow programs for the universities, the NYU and Columbia programs. Like, this is to get money from the students. I said, as a dean, I loved cash cow programs, but I wouldn't recommend them for a student. And so when you look at IPED and the fellowship opportunity, I was also on fellowship at IPED, and it's not, saving the money is great, but it's not just about saving the money. It's a good indicator that this is a program that really does attract the best students, because they're able to fund them in a way that other programs aren't, because it's more about making money for the department. So IPED, the fact that there is that funding kind of is an indicator of the quality of what you're getting, because they're trying to get the best of you. And yeah, New York is great. I love New York.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. For those who were able to register, we can send you a copy of the recorded Zoom session. Also, for those who are in favor, after the program, you can still approach our alumni there. They'll be happy to talk to you if you want to speak with them one-on-one. Also, for the people over Zoom, we'll keep the Zoom um, open even after we end our session. So if you want to chat with me as I'm chatting with other people asking me direct questions, we can have those conversations if you were shy about asking questions publicly earlier. So again, if you have any questions, please email us at iped@fordham.edu. That's IPED at fordham.edu. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. If you want to connect with our current students, we can do that. If you want to connect with our current Filipino students, we can do that. Or with our Filipino alumni, we can also do that. For our students who are for our alumni who are in favor, just in case, like, curious then kayo what they did when they were in IPED, like Rensi did the 6-month diplomatic fellowship. And so if you're interested in UN related placements, Rensi can share about her experience. John, when he was a student, he was actually one from the first group who we sent to um, I think it was Zimbabwe, correct? Yeah. So he was in Zimbabwe for 6 months with Catholic Relief Services. And so John can speak about that experience. For those of you who are interested in pursuing international development, our partnership with CRS is a good foot in the door for you, because like you may have development background in the Philippines, but participating in our 6-month internship with CRS makes you competitive now when you compete with other applicants in INGOs, including CRS, which is the largest like US-based INGO and one of the largest INGOs out there. Shane, when he was a student of ours, he was interning with the Salesian mission, and so he can also talk about his experience of interning outside Fordham while as a student. Also, Shane had worked with JRS, Jesuit Refugee Services in South Africa when he was a student, and then later on in Lebanon and other parts of the Middle East shortly after graduating. And so you can chat with them about their vast experiences after, during, and after the program. So yeah, we'll keep the Zoom link open, and but I'll stop the recording, and then our alumni in favor will linger a bit to chat with the students who are in attendance. Thank you, everyone. So whether you're applying for 2025 or if you are, like, our deadline is January, um, but for fellowship consideration, but you can continue to submit your application after January. Um, and then if you're planning to apply in a different year, our admission cycle will remain the same. Our deadlines would usually be at January for fellowship consideration and then rolling admissions after. All right, thank you. Okay, let me start the recording, but we'll keep the Zoom open. Actually, how do I stop the record?